Hey guys, it's Alex the Pug Pourteau. Give me back my pro wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
For those who don't know, now you know, baby. This is Hot Rod Biggs, Jared, Jimmy Street. We're going to take them to the limit one more time, baby, right here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast, and it is me, your host, Jimmy Street, here as always. Hope y'all are doing awesome today. Hope you're having a good day out there in listener land. I know I am. Thank you all for tuning in today. Of course, if you read the name on the marquee, today we have the one and only Alex the Pug Pourteau. Man, remember Alex working in the WWE and WCW? He did a lot of stuff, of course, with Tony Anthony and the Dirty White Boys. We got a lot of stuff to ask Alex. Can't wait to get to him. But before we do, of course, Alex is going to be at the GrappleCon 4 Back to Lutz with our buddy Captain's Corner and former guest Jeff Van Camp, a.k.a. Lord Humongous, Chick Donovan, so many others, Jerry the King Lawler, the Mountie, Dutch Mantell. He's going to be dropping some more names as we go along, the Godwins, literally a ton of great stars that are going to be at GrappleCon 4 Back to Lutz, and that is the Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway, 2101 North Point Parkway, Lutz, Florida. Of course, last episode, guys, another awesome guest that is going to be at GrappleCon 4, the main man himself, Tommy Lane, one half of the Rock and Roll RPMs. That was a really good show, guys. We're seeing great numbers on that. Really appreciate y'all tuning in for that. Tommy had a great story. I think that was one of his first ever podcasts that he ever did. So that's really cool. Very much appreciated to Tommy for coming on and telling his story. And thank you all so much for that. Again, to continue on, I do want to talk about our buddy Pastor Rick Reynolds. He has the Gideon's Warriors Ministry, and I don't know if you saw on my Facebook recently. I was blessed enough that Rick picked me to make a video for the Gideon's Warriors Ministry. Of course, you heard that they advertised with us there for their event back in January, so we greatly appreciate that, and it was a great honor to be able to make that video. And so if you all would like to book the Gideon's Warriors, any of you church leaders out there that may be listening, pastors, youth pastors, whatever, email Rick Reynolds at icw2009@hotmail.com. And you can book the Gideon's Warriors for your church today. They're willing to travel. I know that they've got some churches talking to them now. So if you would like them for your church, give them a holler. Rick Reynolds at icw2009@hotmail.com. One more thing before we get to our guest of the day, Alex the Pug Pourteau. I gotta say congratulations to our former guest Barry Dorso and his tag partner Bill Eadie, aka Axe and Smash, also known as Demolition. They have been selected to go into the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame. As you heard us mention on the show with Barry, it is long overdue and very much deserved. Congratulations, guys. Y'all deserve every bit of that, and can't wait to watch when it happens. All right, guys, that's all I got for the open. Hang around. Sheik's joining me on the other side, and we'll be right back with the one and only Alex the Pug Pourteau on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
Hey, my name is Tammy Reynolds. I am the wife of Forsaken Rick Reynolds, that super cool guy that everybody knows and loves. And I represent West Side Sauces. I make sauces, I bottle them, I seal them, I sell them. I have a hot honey sauce, I have a sweet sauce, I have a hot sauce, I have a white sauce that's so yummy you can use it on everything. They are absolutely amazing and I'm so proud of them. We make them from scratch. So go on our website, westsidesauces.com. Check out our products, read about our story, and go online and order you some of these yummy sauces. And Rick actually uses all of the sauces because he is a die-hard smoker and griller, and so he likes really good sauces and rubs, and I make them, so how convenient is that for him? Go on our website, westsidesauces.com, order you some samples, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy them. Thank you guys. Be blessed.
All right, we are back with another awesome guest on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. I tell you, Sheik, we are so excited about this one. This has been another one in the list that we have wanted to have on our podcast. So many former guests, whether it's Lynn Denton, Tony Anthony, whoever has brought Ben Jordan, they've brought him up. And this one means a lot because, he did his time and has a great story to tell, and I'm excited to hear all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Alex Pourteau. Sir, welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much. Everybody good out there?
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely great to have you here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, the reason you're here is because of Captain's Corner and Grapple Con 4 Back to Lutz, April 11th at the Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway. And that is 2101 North Point Parkway, Lutz, Florida. When's the last time you've been to Lutz?
I actually did one of those probably about 3 years ago for Barry Rose before they merged. And it was a great, great outfit. I really enjoyed it and looking forward to coming back.
Yeah, a lot of good stars. Jerry Lawler, Dutch Mantell, our buddy Lord Humongous, Chick Donovan. I think we just had Tommy Lane from the RPMs, and I know the Mountie and so many other guys. I mean, It's a who's who, So I'm excited. I know you're going to do well down there.
Yes, it's always good to be in Tampa. I mean, half the roster lives there, so you're right there with all the boys.
Official wrestler retirement home. So. Yeah.
You got that right.
Well, we always start the show off with one question from the Plastic Sheik. Sheik, take it away, brother.
So if you had a list, 4 or 5 names in the business, it might have been people you like to work with, people you admired, people that inspired you watched growing up, anything like that. A Mount Rushmore, 4 or 5 names. Who would those names be?
Well, there's different ways of answering that. I mean, who's helped me in the business, who I enjoyed working with, but I would say Jim Cornette, Skandar Akbar, Michael Hayes.
Oh, man.
And I'm going to have to say, let me put Owen Hart in there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a great list.
We became a little closer later in my career, but he was real good to me, in WWE, and he enjoyed working. A lot of those other guys were just, it was all about them. But, when I worked with Owen and Davey Boy, those guys wanted to work, and I just, Davey Boy, I put him in there too. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a great list, man. I mean, as many of these as we've done and had people, nobody's ever had Cornette in there, and that's what a mind for the business, and that's amazing, amazing first pull and an amazing list altogether.
Well, and it tells you where today's times are with today's fans and market. There's just there's a lack of respect for the guys that really know the business, and then everybody that thinks they know the business doesn't know the business. So.
Yeah.
We have a whole different business today, and we have a whole different fan base today. So, I guess it's good and bad. I mean, but I'll take it either way. It's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I tell you what, the perfect question to come out of that, who trained you, man? What year and where was it?
Well, I was trained by Jim Starr. He was one of the original mask interns out of the St. Louis territories with I can't think. Dr. Ken Ramey was his manager.
Yeah.
And he had a gym in Bossier City, and a lot of the boys used to pass through there and train, in the gym itself. He had a real nice old school powerhouse gym. That's where the Mid-South area was. And he actually, I went down and showed him a video of me doing a few things in the ring, and, he kind of smirked a little bit. He said, well, you're doing a lot of cool stuff, but you don't know where to put it in. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, I got a kid I'm going to train here in the back of my gym next month. He said, I don't really feel like getting in the ring with him. He said, you want to come in there and be a baby face? I'll just call everything on the outside. And I said, I'll be there. And I learned how to work in the back of that gym in about 6 weeks and didn't pay a dime.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So who was your first match against, and kind of what name did you use, and where and everything like that ended up being?
Well, I was a big mark in the Mid-South Territory, you know, growing up in Shreveport, Bossier.
Oh,
and my two favorite workers were Flair and Mr. Wrestling 2. And so I put a hood on, and I had a robe, and my character was the custom-made crippler. I was always taught, you know, wear a hood when you first start. That way, if you're the shits, you know, nobody will know it.
Right.
And anyway, you know, so, and I was actually a pretty good worker right off the bat. You know, I have to pat myself on the back with that. But anyway, the guy's name was Rainbow Brown. He was just a local guy there in Louisiana. But you know, really had a great match. It was right there at Barksdale Air Force Base, right there, just a couple of miles where I grew up, and that's where it all started right there. And I started, you know, just doing some indies there in Louisiana, and shot over to World Class about 3 months later and got my break.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So in summer of '89, you get to work some WCW shows. How did those bookings come about?
Jody Hamilton put me on the road with those. You know, I reached out to him. You know, back then we'd send a video and, you know, an 8x10 to the office, and that was in Atlanta. And I just started doing some TVs for him. And shoot, man, I worked with a lot of great talent, you know, whenever I was senior in high school, you know, just coming out of high school.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. Road Warriors, Luger, Muda, Terry Funk, Kevin Sullivan, Dane, just a ton of guys, you know, and I was a good hand, you know, and I mean, it was just easy to put me out there with anybody. And they knew I was reliable, and my timing was always good. So I just got a little break there, and kind of excelled from there.
Yeah, because then in the spring of '90, you actually show up in Memphis with Tony Anthony as one of the Dirty White Boys. Now, this is one of our favorite topics to talk about. I guess, how did you get to Memphis, and then whose idea was it to put you with Tony?
Well, I was in Dallas at the time when I was doing those house shows for World Class, but I was working steady in Dallas. You know, guys like Al Perez, Jimmy Jack Funk, Chris Adams,
Man.
You know, Billy Joe Travis, Von Erichs. And Jared had just taken that over with USWA.
Right.
And he came up to me one day. He said, Alex, you want to go to Tennessee and be one of the Dirty White Boys? And that was really my first break. And I cannot thank Jerry enough for that. And he's known that over the years. But that's how that happened. And I was in Nashville a week later.
Yeah. And then did you how's Tony, man? Just tell us about your relationship with Tony Anthony.
Tony's one of the best, man, and what a great worker he was. I learned so much tag team from him. I mean, you know, and I was as much as I had already worked in the ring and did a lot, I was still very, very green when I went in there. And Tony he really showed me a lot. Of course, I went in there with these Harley boots, and they're a lot heavier. They had steel toes on them, so I was tailoring a lot of guys by accident.
Yeah. Ben Jordan's told me about that.
Yeah. but you know, I learned a lot from Tony. Tony was a great promo guy, and just knew timing, and he knew everything about tag team wrestling and singles, really. But Tony was one of the best guys that was ever. He was really, really good to me. He really was.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, you're probably getting a lot of the knowledge that he just got from tagging with Lynn Denton for so long, you know, I mean, so it's really fresh in his mind. And then of course he's got his own stuff that he's teaching too. You're getting a amazing course in pro wrestling for sure.
Oh yeah, brother. You can't get a rub like that anymore. I mean, all these green guys are working with green guys. That's why nobody knows how to work. You know, I mean, I was working with guys that knew how to work, and that's how you learn how to work. Yeah. And that's what's missing today, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, then by May, you were gone and actually replaced by a former guest of the show, Jimmy Powell, in the Dirty White Boys. What did you end up leaving for? Just time? Was it just time?
Yeah, I really regretted leaving. I really did. But Tony, he was doing some things with Dirty White Girl, and they were kind of had some ideas, and so we just parted ways. And I ended up going down to Houston and working out with Booker T and Stevie Ray and Scott Putsky. And then that's wherever I got a phone call from Puerto Rico from Akbar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, before Puerto Rico, you did some shows for WCW, it looks like. And then you end up in Puerto Rico in like 91. Like, where were you at between those times that were just where you with Booker T and them?
Yeah, I was down to Houston. I lived down there for about, maybe 6 months or so. And then Akbar called me. And he's the one that got me in world class, when I first started. So, he was always had me in his back pocket. And, I was young and green. I'd never left the country. And he said, Alex, I may have a spot for you out here in Puerto Rico. And I said, dang, that's awesome. What interstate do I take out of Miami? And he said, oh no, son, you got to get on a plane, kid. And anyway, I ended up going out there, and I thought I was going out there just for 4 or 5 days, and I flew out, and I was getting ready to fly out the next day. After I did a little 5-day run there, and I went in the office to get my payoff, and they said, no, amigo, we want you to stay. So I lived there for 2 years. I learned that I really, really learned a lot in Puerto Rico. It was the first time I had actually ever been in separate locker rooms. And only given a finish to go out and work. And, that was very, very different. The kayfabe was still very alive and heavy out there. That's how you learn how to work. So, I was working 5 days a week out there doing TV 1 day a week and, doing promos and stuff. So I would have, even though I did a lot before that, Puerto Rico was really the college of pro wrestling for me.
Okay. Yeah. Now, did you go down there a bad guy or good guy?
I was a heel. Most Americans go down there as heels. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured so. I was going to ask because how did that crowd treat you? How was that coming? I mean, not to say that, Dallas or Memphis or WCW is tame in certain instances. I guess they are, but to Puerto Rico, to a heel, it's definitely.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, those kids are, they cuss at you, and I mean, they're believers. They think it's a shoot, and that's a good thing,
right?
And that's how you get strong heat down there. I mean, I was in a battle royal one night, and they threw a battery. I don't know if they meant to hit me or not, but they clocked me right in the side of the head and cut me up hard way. And the referee was trying to get me out of the match. I said, no, I'm in the finish. I got to stay in here. Of course, if it was bad enough, I guess I'd have to go to the back, but I stayed in there and worked the whole match. But I mean, they throw spark plugs at you, ice. They'll piss in a cup and throw it at you when you're going through the locker room entrance there. And they're brutal down there, man. They are brutal.
Yeah. Tommy Lane just told us that they would pack a cup half full of dirt and throw it at you. It was crazy. So,
oh yeah. Buddy Rose had so much heat out there one night. They flipped his cab over while he was in it, started on fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably early 80s, so that tells you what kind of heat people had out there, and how alive the business was there,
Yeah. Well, we can't let this pass up. One of my favorite managers of all time is Skandar Akbar. I would love to hear something about Skandar.
One of the best men I've ever met in my life, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just a good, genuine man. Tight as a frog's ass. Don't ever ask me for $1, I'll tell you that. But a good, and he always had a knot on him that would choke a horse. He probably had 10 grand in his pocket every time he saw him. But just a good man. He never had to leave Dallas. He bought a home there in the early 60s, and he did so well in world class and Mid-South. He never had to go anywhere else and didn't need to,
Right.
Kind of like Tommy Rich. Tommy Rich was a hot baby face in Atlanta. Everybody wanted to know, well, how come Tommy didn't go anywhere and do anything? Well, Tommy didn't have to. He made a boatload of money right there, and he was home every night.
Right.
The same thing with Akbar. Akbar made a ton of money, and he was home every night. So
yeah,
he didn't need to go anywhere. But Ak was a great, I rode around a lot with him and Bronco Lubitsch, Mike Davis, Jimmy Jack Funk, and I was just, taking it all in, as a young man, and Gary Young, Cactus Jack. I mean, there's just a lot of great talent in Dallas, and I used to take a bus to Dallas, and run me about, probably $40 each way. But I didn't have a car at the time, I was young, and the first month when I first started, but John Tatum and Jack Victory, they used to take me to the bus station and get me back home. But I'd be in class on Monday morning in high school, and they'd say, "Hey man, we saw you working with Kevin Von Erich. We saw you wrestling Kevin Von Erich on Saturday night, Channel 11." So I was in high school working with good talent like that, and just amazing time back in the day. Of course those days are gone now, but I was happy to be a part of it.
Man, I can't even imagine that. I was probably picking my nose while you were winning titles. You know what I mean? At the same age. I'm not saying the same time, but you know what I'm saying, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So in May of 92, you show up in another one of our favorite promotions, Global in Dallas. Obviously, was that Skandar?
It was. Akbar had already left Puerto Rico. When I went out there, he was already on his way back to Dallas. Mm-hmm. It was rare that he went out there, but he went out there to be a booker for them. And, he had a good relationship with those guys. And I'll say Ak never left Dallas. That was one time that he did. But yeah, when I finished up out there, I was just kind of wrapped up after about a couple of years, and Dallas was primarily my home for pro wrestling. I grew up in Louisiana. It was only about 180 miles outside of Dallas. So Global was hopping, the ESPN was doing the TV, and Michael Hayes and Bill Irwin, they were in the office. Mm-hmm. And whenever I got back, they had a surfer guy named Sean Summers.
Okay.
And they told me, they said, "Hey, we're gonna call you the Beach Bully, and you and Sean are gonna be a tag team." So we did that for a little bit, and that had a nice little pop to it. And I put that little sunblock on my nose and had a water gun, and it was a good little gimmick for TV. We had a good little run with that. We had a good couple of years with that. So
that's cool.
That was some great exposure. A lot of great talent there. Tony Norris, Bradshaw was there when he was younger.
Yeah. Booker T and
Booker T and Stevie Ray. Yeah. So again, there was still guys in there, to work with that knew how to work, and we're still learning how to work and eager to learn how to work, trying to focus on the big picture, the next big promotion, the next big payoff. That's what we're missing today is these guys, they're just content where they're at. They're okay. They're okay working at Home Depot and doing this on Saturday night,
Right.
And I get it. Some guys have to do that, but they seem to be just happy doing that, and there's no drive in that to me. I never understood that.
Sometimes I think it's like, look, we don't have the genetics to make it to the big boys, and we still want to do this. But I understand totally what you're saying. You know what I mean? That makes total sense.
Well, and that's a good point, and I feel for guys like that because, listen, this business isn't for everybody.
Right.
And it shows, you go to today's indie shows and you see that. And this is why there's a terrible return on people that don't know how to book, or book people that know how to work, or know card structure, because they're just they're paying a ticket to watch a pro wrestling event, and the promoters are shits. Nobody knows how to call finishes. The workers are terrible. They're all mixing in with the crowd. You go out there in the first opening match, you should go 4 or 5 minutes, nothing outside. Finish with a small package. They're doing everything in the book to open the show. It's killing the rest of the show. Nobody has nothing left to do. And there's just no more structure in the business, just anything goes. And that's why a lot of the older guys just kind of walked away from it and don't really even have anything to say much about it anymore. It's a shame. It really is, but that's just my take.
No, it's a solid take, and I think it's pretty much 100% consistent with every guest we've ever had. So totally right. One thing, Global, to me, when I think of Global, they had some great heavyweights and tag teams, but really that lightweight scene in there was so good. You had the Barry Horowitz, I already brought him up, but I mean, Ben Jordan, Jerry Lynn, Chaz Taylor, of course, 1-2-3 Kid, Lightning Kid, yourself. You had a good little run with the lightweight title down there too, man. How was that?
I did. I really enjoyed that, and Act kind of kept that belt on me. The heels always get over with the straps because the babyface has to chase them. And so, I don't know how many times I had that strap, maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe 5. I worked with a couple of Japanese guys that came in with Jimmy Suzuki, and just had some good, strong TV matches with that. I mean, back then, they'd give us plenty of time to work out there too. You didn't have these little 4 or 5 minute matches, so
Right.
you could actually go out there and tell a good story, and you weren't in a hurry to do it. So we had some good matches out of that light heavyweight scene. It was good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
So for about a month in the fall of 92, you go to Japan for Kendo Nagasaki's Now promotion. How did that booking come about?
Well, it was just, everything's right time, the right place in this business, and I was in Dallas, and Kendo Nagasaki lived in Dallas, and I was working one night, and, Kendo was up in what we call the cage at the Sportatorium, just kind of scoping some talent, and we didn't even know it really, but after the show, he'd come up to, I think it was me and Bradshaw, Rod Price, Stevie Ray and Booker, and he said, you guys want I think more so individually, he had asked me, he said, Alex, you want to go to Japan? And I said, yeah, I'd love to go to Japan. So it was just quite that simple, and I think I did, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 tours over there, 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But man, I tell you, that was a whole different ball game. And even though I was a pretty good hand and doing a lot of stuff, and I'd worked 2 years in Puerto Rico, and I did a lot of stuff on ESPN for, a while. There was nothing like going to Japan and getting shot on, because that's where the real boys work. And it doesn't matter, what your friendship is or anything. When the bell rings, it's all business over there. It's a give and take. Everything's hand signals. The referee looks at you and gives you a thumbs up if you're going over, thumbs down if you're not. You just go out in the ring and work. So it's very, very different over there. And working in Puerto Rico for 2 years, not being able to communicate with your opponent, and lay out anything really helped me over there, because not anybody can work that type of environment. So, and I think that's why Kendo chose me, and Booker and Stevie. I mean, we were believable workers, and Bradshaw, Rod Price, we're the guys that stood out to him that night, and we got to go to Japan. So again, it's all timing, right place at the right time.
Yeah, definitely.
So then you head back to Global for a few months, and then it's back to Japan for another tour. Who were some of the people you worked on that second tour in Japan?
It's hard to say. I did tag with Bob Orton Jr. over there. Buddy Landell was on our tour over there, Manny Fernandez, but we didn't really work with American guys over there. We just worked with a lot of the Japanese guys. They had their own crew over there. We'd go over sometimes, and then sometimes we'd put them over. But I worked with Kendo Nagasaki on one of my last tours there, and we had a knockdown, teardown main event in Cork and Hall. And he actually shot on me a little bit. He kicked me in the jaw. My jaw hurt all the way on the flight back to Dallas. But that's okay. That's part of the business, Yeah. It happens, and it's okay. I mean, I don't mind working like that as long as I didn't get a dislocated jaw, I don't mind working snug, because I work snug, and that's how you learn. That's where you're a believable worker, and I learned that one night. I'll tell you who I learned that from, is Ricky Santana. We were in Puerto Rico, and we had worked the same match for about 3 nights in a row. And then the next night was TV. And we came back, and I seen him at the hotel or the restaurant, maybe the next night or something. I don't know. Maybe at the gym, just crossing paths in a hallway, because we were ever in the public eye. And I told him, I said, "Dang, brother, you were snug last night. You were real loose the last few nights." He said, "Because it was TV, brother. There's the cameras on us." And I said, "Okay, that's what that means, huh?" Yeah. And that's exactly what he meant. The cameras are rolling. You got to be snug.
Makes so much sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the middle of this tour, we found a couple matches where it looked like you went back to Dallas, and one of them was the Von Erich Memorial show that Global did. Were you on that show, and what do you remember about it?
Gosh, I don't even know, brother, to be honest with you. There's a lot I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah.
I was probably on that show. I don't know if that was that football show where they had no ropes, and I don't know if that was what that was. I'm just trying to think if that's what that was or not. It may have been or may not have, but it doesn't sound like that's the kind of show they would kind of match it and put on that card. But I do remember that show. And I will say this, talking about the Von Erichs, and this is no disrespect to anybody in the business, but, and I'm sure that there were some guys that maybe said their last goodbyes to Kerry prior to the funeral, because of the territory is such a heavy K-paved area. Right. But that funeral, it was me, Bradshaw, Scott Putsky, and I want to say James Byrd. Those are the only boys that I saw there from the Dallas area. And, wow. and I remember that same day when after the funeral, Owen and Bret Hart were there, and we went to have lunch at, believe it or not, Owen's restaurant.
No.
Yeah. And anyway, I just thought that was very, very odd, as over as he was. And, I just figured there'd be a lot more boys there, but there wasn't. I was just quite shocked by that. Anyway, that's just a little side note.
No, that's we love that. That's the kind of stories we're looking for. That's crazy though, man. Mm-hmm. I've heard something about sometimes older wrestlers will say that they don't like funerals, which who does?
I don't like them either.
Yeah, I hate them.
Yeah. But, in that instance, it is surprising. You're exactly right. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I was in Japan when it happened. I'd called Akbar, and just because he was my guy to touch base with, my whole career basically. But I remember he said, "Alex, we've had a tragedy," and that was, I forgot, that was in February. I want to say, I'm not sure, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I remember flying home and getting home back to Dallas just in time for the funeral. And I was just quite shocked. There was a lot of people at the funeral, but as far as the boys, I just didn't see too many of the boys. So again, there's a lot of guys there that was back in late 80s, whatever it was, early 90s, I forget, but yeah, early 90s. There's still a lot of kayfabe going on there. So I'm sure there's a lot of the boys made some phone calls to the family,
Sure.
But again, it just, the presence of the other guys wasn't there, but anyway.
Right.
We'll be right back with more Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Captain's Corner is ready to turn up the heat as winter thaws and we get closer to the spring season. We are excited to welcome the legendary Haku for a public signing in the month of March at the big event in New York. Mail-in is accepted and we'll also have 8x10 photos and cards available. Then on Saturday, April 11th, the spring breakout event of the year takes place at the Residence Inn right outside Tampa. It's Glory Days Grapple Con 4, featuring Jerry the King Lawler, Dirty Dutch Mantel, The Mountie, Austin Idol, Nikita Koloff, and over 15 additional other stars. This is one event that's sure to thaw you out from the cold. Tickets available now at ticketstreet.com. Make sure to follow us at Captain's Corner Wrestling on Instagram and Facebook. Cheers to the working man.
So, then you're back to Global, like you said. You had that light heavyweight title. Mm-hmm. Could you tell around that time in like the fall of 1984 or so that it wasn't gonna last long? Could you all tell, or was it a complete shock?
Yeah, we knew. We knew because David Crockett came in. He owned a couple of ice cream shops there in Dallas, and he tried to take it over. He tried to make it pop again, and he brought in Kevin Von Erich and Dick Murdoch. Kevin didn't do a whole lot at Round Global. He just wanted so much money, which was understandable. I mean, he knew how to need Drew,
right?
But I think, and Crockett, he brought in Junkyard Dog, and like I said, Murdoch and a few guys, and Greg Valentine. So he had a little tour going there. And I want to say the last loop, a lot of the guys didn't get paid, and it was over with. And that was the end of Global. So I was right there on it. And that's whenever I moved to Orlando, and I've been there for 30 years now, since 94.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you talked about Crockett and Dallas and everything like that. Could you tell that the NWA Dallas wasn't going to make it long when that was going on too, or was that?
Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, I thought, Dallas had taken a sour turn after the Von Erich situation. It really did. It just, those guys were they were a god in Texas, but then you'd read the newspaper and see what kind of trouble they were in. It was so sad because they were so over, but in so much trouble.
Yeah,
right.
Not all, Kevin wasn't always in trouble. I mean, matter of fact, hardly at all. But Mike and Chris and Kerry, they just had a lot of stuff going on. That people got word of and wind of. So. But Dallas just had a hard time really turning around at that point. And even bringing in Dog and Murdoch and Valentine and Kevin, it just really had a hard time. And I'll be honest with you, this is around the time when Chris Adams, and God bless Chris, I enjoyed working with Chris, great worker, had several great matches with him. But he would run around Texas. He'd go to these towns and promote them, and he knew how to promote. He knew what he was doing. But he'd bring in Iceman or Action Jackson and put them on top with him, and then he would just have a shit underneath card, and then he would take the money and run. And so he'd burn all these towns around Dallas and Arkansas and Louisiana, and then that just put a real black eye on people trying to run indies after that,
Yeah, I got you.
But that's the way the guys were. They were carny back then, and make $5-10 grand and leave town, and then go work another town like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense though. I mean, it's and it still goes on to this day. Unfortunately, I think promoters have it's a different kind of thing today, but still, anyway, we don't have to talk about today anymore. So after you worked Crockett, the CWA started running Dallas. What do you remember about the CWA?
That was a little promotion there, right there in Arlington, right or Grand Prairie where I lived, and it was okay. I mean, I think he got a lot more hype than what it really was. But the guy didn't really know what he was doing back there, but he had some money, and he brought in some good workers. I remember when he brought in Tommy Rogers, and I worked with Tommy Rogers one night, hot off of his Japan tour. And that was one of the best matches I ever had in my life. And, again, that was one of those matches where we went out there and called it the ring, a lot like Fit Finley and WCW. I mean, we just went out there and worked, and, and that's the way guys enjoy working, the ones that know how to work, and this is why today's kids need producers now, because number one, you got to find out if they're doing everything everybody else is doing.
Right.
And then you got to, hey, no super kick. Sean's doing that tonight. No, no tornado DDT. Mysterio's doing that. Because you got to hear everything that they're doing, because if you don't, they're going to do everybody's finish. But not all of them, but a lot of these guys. But anyway, and that's anyway. But what was the main question on that?
Basically, just the CWA. What do you remember about that promotion? Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I probably had, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 shows there, if that. But the one thing that stood out to me was working with Tommy Rogers. And I always enjoyed working with guys that knew how to work. Tommy could go, man. Tommy could go.
Yeah.
And, there's not a lot of guys that can say they did a singles with Tommy Rogers for 10 or 12 minutes. And I had that opportunity. Tommy didn't work a whole lot of singles, outside of Bobby Fulton, until after Fantastic kind of faded away. But what an honor it was to work with him. Just a firecracker worker, brother.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that dude is just, he had the body of a Greek god. We were tag team. We grew up tag team marks, man. That's just what we are. And him and Bobby in the Fantastics were incredible. I can imagine, man, he was definitely one of those underrated guys for sure. And he's rated well amongst you guys, you know what I mean? But among the fans, he's way underrated and he should be more,
Yeah. Well, Tommy was a real big guy, but, there was a lot of guys that weren't big guys back then, but, that's what people like, the Ernie Lads and the John Stud and, Jim Duggan, and Kamala, those guys that were bigger than life,
Right.
Tommy Rogers, just, and even myself. I mean, when you fly out on an airplane, nobody says, "Oh, that's Alex Pourteau," or that's, you know what I mean? But if you see Jim Duggan at a gate, or if you see John Stud at a gate, or, these big guys, Billy Gunn, I mean, you could tell those guys are pro athletes, I mean, they don't blend in with society,
I mean, you looked pretty pro, though. I'll say that, Alex.
Well, I appreciate that. But what I mean by that was I wasn't, 6'4" and 280 jack,
right,
with a small waist.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. So in 96, you end up going to the WWF, and you actually made your debut wrestling a dark match on Superstars on March 10th in Corpus Christi when you teamed with Rod Price against Devin Michaels and Bo Vegas, who would turn into WCW's High Voltage later on. So that's how...
Yeah, interesting to do that.
How was that? How did you get that dark match?
Well, I was brought in for a tryout. I knew that they were looking for guys, and this was a tryout. I'd already moved to Florida, so I had a tryout in San Antonio, and then the next night was Corpus Christi. So that match was actually San Antonio. We went out and worked with them. They were looking at all four of us. They were looking at Devin and whatever.
Bo,
yeah. They were looking at those guys. They were looking at yeah. And when we were done with that match, I came back through the curtain. Wait, no, I'm sorry. After, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. You're the first night was San Antonio. Okay. I had a tag match with the Godwins.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And Hillbilly Jim. And that was really good. It was very simple. They were just looking at guys. They were seeing if guys were listening. They give you a finish. Are you listening? Can you run it? Are you giving the guys any negative feedback? You don't want to do anything or whatever. That's how they find out if guys, if that's who they wanted on their roster or not. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I had a great night that night. And then the next night was Corpus Christi. That's whenever we did the tag. And right after that tag, I go back to the locker room, and I don't know who it was. They said it just like this: "Hey, Alex, could you run back out there and work with Gold Dust? Sean Waltman's neck's hurt. He's not going to be able to do it." So I went back out there, me and the referee. You know how it is on those shows. I just went right to the ring, and then Gold Dust music hits, and Marlena comes out. I get that big long entrance. Haven't talked to Dustin, didn't say a word. And we worked, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 minutes, and had a great match. Just called it all in the ring. And when I got back there, I knew that impressed them.
Yeah.
And that was my, I worked with the Godwins the night before. Then I worked with, the tag to open up the show in the dark match. And then I ran back out there. I worked with Gold Dust. Well, that was the third time that they looked at me in the 2 nights, and they called me back a couple of weeks later, and they offered me a contract. They said, "Hey, we're going to fly you into Stanford, and we'll bring you in and sign some paperwork." This is back when they didn't have no electronic signing. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny that, I flew into New York, and when I got there, Tracy Smothers showed up. and then Tom Randy shows up.
Yeah.
And Tony Anthony shows up, and Jim Neidhart shows up because he was gone for a while, and they had all shuttled us in a limousine from the airport to the office.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, nobody knew we were all coming in together. We just happened to meet at the same stop and got in the car and left. And we toured the facility there, and then we went to Creations, and that's when they had all asked us about our former characters and what we'd done and all that. So, but that's how that all popped.
And you were the only one that came out unscathed as far as your name. Unfortunately, they turned the best romping, stomping heel ever from the territories and Dirty White Boy into a plumber. They turned Tracy Smothers into a amalgam of the Briscoes, and then they turned the Goon, Bill Irwin. I mean, you came out with the Pug. So tell us, I know you were an amateur wrestler gimmick, which fit you perfectly, but who came up with the Pug name?
Well, like I said a while ago, after we toured the building, and they gave us a little handful of merchandise and stuff, some shirts and hats, and we went Creations, and we all went in individually, and they asked, what characters we'd done in the last thing, and I told them Dirty White Boy, Beach Bully, just Alex Porto in Puerto Rico and Japan. And the last thing I told them, I said, I wrestled 4 years in high school before I ever got in the business. And Bruce Pritchard called me back about a week later and said, well, you're going to be an amateur wrestler. You just came out of college. You don't know a lot about the business. And you're just going to be a little shooter like Bob Backlund, kind of like that. And I said, okay, great. And he said, we're not sure if we're going to call you the Pit Bull or the Pug, but it's probably going to be the Pug because Craig Pittman is using Pit Bull in Atlanta, at the time. So anyway, that's where the Pug came from.
Okay, cool. And I mean, you got to work some, awesome names there. I mean, Barry Horowitz was one of your, I remember, and had you worked Barry in Global? I'm sure you had, right?
No, I never did.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time we worked together. Yeah.
Okay. And then I know you end up working
But
Vader.
You're right. I worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I worked with Vader. I worked with Vader. It's funny you say that. I worked with Vader in Reunion Arena for WCW back in those times whenever I was doing the house shows for them in '89. And then we met up again in '96 in WWE. So, I worked with a ton of great athletes up there and just great, genuine workers. I mean, Hunter, Gold Dust, Davey Boy Owen,
Ron Simmons,
Doug Burnett, Phil LaFon. Yeah, Ron Simmons.
Smoking Guns. Jim Neidhart. Yeah.
Smoking Guns.
Yeah. Studs.
And, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what ended up happening with WWE, man?
Well, you know what? I think, they didn't bring us in. They didn't bring us in to get us over.
Right.
And I say that, and that's okay. I knew what the spot was after I got there. I didn't know what the spot was till I got there.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
but,
no, it does.
And this is why they brought us in. They were tired of going town to town and all these local guys showing up to want to work, enhancement matches, but they were pale, no muscles, terrible gear, and that's all they had to work with. So they thought, you know what? Let's bring in some guys that know how to work. We'll let them put guys over on Raw, and then we'll put them over on Superstars to return the favor, and we'll put them on some house shows and sprinkle them in some international tours, which was great, and it lasted for about a year and a half. And it just WCW was kind of taking off there at the time. We were struggling up there. We really were, even though they had a lot of great talent. And I was on a nightly up there. I wasn't on a guarantee, so right. There was times when I would be booked for Shotgun Saturday Night or pay-per-view, and they'd say, Alex, actually we're scaling back. We may put you on the next one,
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, it started kind of hurt me financially because I was spending on those bookings,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I can see where this is going. And it just kind of, we parted ways at that. As sad as it was, because I was so pumped when I got there, and I thought, man, I finally made it. I signed a WWF contract, and as much as I enjoyed Puerto Rico and global and Japan, I'd never considered being, I don't know the word to put it, but listen, it's like signing with Dallas Cowboys or the Yankees.
Right.
It's very rare to get a spot like that. It's very rare to get a spot with WWF. But to this day it is. So I was a little hurt, to be honest with you, because they knew I knew how to work, but they also only gave me, you got 4 minutes with Farouk, or you got 5 minutes with Mankind, and those guys, they were just out there to get themselves over. And I get it. That's fine. But it didn't do much for me.
Right.
That makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
It was the best promotion I've ever worked for. I mean, every encyclopedia they had put out. And I cannot ask for a better position or company to be with, but how I was used. But I will say this, compared to the others, I'll take it. And I felt bad for Tony. I felt bad for Tony Anthony. And I felt bad for a few of the guys, because listen, we were strong workers. We knew how to work, but you need good workers to work with guys that struggle how to work.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
So again, that's why that's what they brought us in for. And they knew all along what they needed, but we didn't know what they were doing until we got there.
Yeah.
So, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I mean, it's just a different version of a similar story we've heard a couple times before. It's the truth. That's exactly what it is. But you know what? I do think you were looked on. I don't know what it is, man, but it's a fond memory for me to think of your time there. And I know I think it is for other people too. Whereas something like Tony getting a plumber, you came out to the Steiner's old theme. And that's not a bad thing, especially it fit your gimmick.
Nope.
Tony came out to a flushing toilet.
I know, it bless his heart. That pissed me off so bad.
Yeah.
It really did. It's just, but you're right. And I'll be honest with you. And I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that the character that they gave me, and is what inspired them to go out and get Kurt Angle.
Wow.
Because they did this is the time where they were going out. This is now the time where they started going out scouting guys and bringing them in. And I think, dang, man, Pug's a good little hand. But what if we brought in Olympic gold medalist?
It's hard to compete with that. What I'm saying? Totally. Yeah.
It is. I mean, and Kurt was great. One of the greatest. I mean,
sure.
He had a lot of charisma. I didn't have a ton of charisma. I did it, but I was a good hand. I knew how to work.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I worked with Kurt Angle in Jacksonville for them, and I remember talking to him in the bathroom. He said, "Man, I don't know what I'm doing. I need you to lead this whole thing." And I said, "Don't worry, I got it. Just listen to me out there. I'll call the whole thing."
Yeah.
And this is talking to Kurt Angle before he even started, before he got his break. So, everybody starts somewhere,
Totally.
So in the fall of '97, you start doing some shows for WCW. Was there any talk of a contract during that time? Because they were, they were signing all kinds of talent back then.
They were. And man, I tell you, I was working hard there because I just came out of WWF and I was coming out of those enhancement matches, and I was still doing enhancement matches with WCW with Finley and Kidman and, Super Callow. But they were giving me some time to work in there. I mean, we didn't have 3 or 4 minute matches. We had 6 or 8. You can do a whole lot in 6 or 8 minutes. And I tried really hard to get a job with them. Through my work itself. I didn't have a lot of politics in there. Jody Hamilton was he was out. He was already he was doing the Deep South thing. So Jody was my stroke in my younger years with WCW. And I remember Terry Taylor was the booker, and he said, and he called me back there one day after one of the matches. He said, "Alex, you're working hard out there. These are enhancement matches." I said, "Well, Terry, I know how to work. I want to work." And that's exactly what I told him.
Yeah.
And I just, I was at a point where I just started shooting straight with guys at that point,
Right.
because it wasn't a cocky thing. It was just being honest,
Right.
and,
You're knocking on 10
Anyway.
years in the business at that point. If you're not going to stand up for yourself at that point, you're probably never going to stand up for yourself, right? So, I mean,
right. And I couldn't really do that with WWE. I just couldn't do that. It was just, it was just a lot different office up there. But, when I came to WCW, it was a little looser, and they didn't really have producers back then either, because all the boys knew how to work.
right.
If you know how to work, you don't need a producer.
Mhm.
Producers are, no, you don't need to cut off there. You need to cut off here. No, you need to start your comeback here. If you know how to work, you don't need a producer to tell you that. Now you have to have a producer out there, because these guys, they don't know what timing is, and they don't know when to take it home. And of course, you got a lot of commercial breaks, and they're there to implement stuff like that too. But anyway, I just had a lot more leeway in WCW, and I'm trying to think of his name, JJ Dillon. He said, "Alex, I'm gonna be taking a look at you out there," and he was in the office. So, and I really appreciate him coming up to me and telling me that. But nothing ever really came of it. So that was the end of the WCW and Universal Studios. So.
Yeah, it's such a surprise. Honestly, they were such a hot time, and like Jared said, they were signing a lot of guys. It was just you seemed like the perfect fit for me, in my opinion. But we'll go with that.
Well, yeah, and I lived there in Orlando, and they knew they had me here. They didn't have to fly me in. They didn't have to have a hotel. I drive 10 miles down the road, and I'm at Universal Studios, so it's a win-win for them.
Right?
You see?
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
But yeah, yeah. So anyway, sometimes it's good and bad to be at home and working.
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, and to kind of look at your history, around this time, it kind of looks like you're starting to wind things down a bit. I'm sure, with there only being really two companies, even at this point, it was turning into one company. In the summer of 2000, you go to Japan. Then in 2001, you go back to Puerto Rico. And then after that, it kind of looks like you're doing a lot of indies.
I was still working pretty strong at, 27, 28 years old. And I was working some good indie matches down here in Florida.
That's what we heard.
I was working the FIP, Yeah, I was working with, I worked some good matches, Brian Danielson. And there were some guys, Sauer and Ara. I don't know if you guys know those guys.
Definitely. Yeah.
There's a lot of good hands down there. And, they would bring those guys in and let's see, I'm trying to think of who the booker was. Gabe Sapolsky? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who's with WWE now. He was the booker. So I really enjoyed, doing that. And that was about the time things started kind of wrapping up, and I've got 3 kids now. I live in Orlando, and, there's a lot of work down here. A lot of unnecessary work too. There's just a lot of guys that think they know how to work, but, and there's guys that do. I shouldn't say that, but, anyway, yeah. So, I think the last thing I really did was I did a match in Louisiana a couple of years ago. And then about 4 years ago, I did something over in Germany. They like to bring in the old 80s. They like to bring in the 90s and 80s WWF guys. So I went over there and did some stuff there. And, he bring in, Godwins or Savio Vega or, Bushwhacker. So, Glacier goes over, I think, occasionally. So,
yeah, solid bunch of guys right there, man. So,
oh yeah.
So, we're kind of nearing the end of our time here as we start to wrap things up. We always kick it to the Sheik for his final question. Sheik, so take it away.
So you've been a lot of places, wrestled a lot of people, been a lot of matches. If you had one match to look back on and say that was my favorite match I was ever a part of, what would that be?
There's a lot of different scenarios with that. Working with Bradshaw in the Garden was something that was awesome. Was it a great match? I was a baby face. But he had Dutch out there and Bradshaw in the Garden. And one of the best arenas in the world. So that was good. If I had to say the best, I would just I would just have to say, and this is just being straight up honest, I would have to say it was probably my match with Fit Finley.
Oh.
In WCW. I mean, I was at a time where I was a seasoned worker,
right?
And I knew I was working with a seasoned worker, and I worked with a lot of great guys down there. I remember working with Dean Malenko one night, and I walked up to him and said, "Dean, what do you want to do?" He said, "Alex, you know how to work. Let's just do it out there." And yeah, and I mean, but I just really enjoyed working with Fit because I don't know. And I've had a lot of great matches. I really have. And a lot of top guys, but let me just give you a scenario. I would say Kendo in Tokyo. I'd say, Fit in Orlando. I would say Bradshaw in the Garden. I would say, and this is, again, this is, Tom Brandi as Salvatore Sincere in Berlin for Monday Night Raw. That was another special moment. I mean, these are just great moments. They're not all the best matches, but these are things that stand out to me, that are hot on my resume.
Yeah.
I mean, I just worked, but when it comes down to it, just enjoy good ring work. Tommy Rogers,
Right.
and gosh, I couldn't ask for more with learning how to work with Tony Anthony for tag team. I mean, we tore the house. Back then you tear the house down if you did the right finish.
Yeah.
And it was easy to get the people. If you have to clap to get the people, then you don't have them.
Right.
So anyway,
that makes so much sense.
I've enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, but I'm catching a flight to Los Angeles tomorrow, guys, and I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. I've got a pro wrestling school, Pro Wrestling 2.0. We actually closed the commercial facility. I'm doing a lot of stuff online right now where, guys, you just send me your work, I'll tweak it and kind of tell you what needs to be done and not done.
Wow.
Things you need to work on. We had a physical, a commercial building, but we just had way too many guys that wanted to pay the tuition that had no idea what it takes to do and to be in this business. I mean, and I hated it. I hated it because I'll tell you why I hated it, because I had to keep those guys to pay the bills for the overhead.
Yeah.
But I'm just such an old school guy where I'm old school where, if I'm going to put my name on you, you need to look like something or
right.
You can't do business.
Of course.
And that's why guys gravitated to me, when I was younger, because they knew I was focused. I was in the gym. I had a good build. I wanted to learn, and they saw me progressively getting better, over time. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
But anyway.
Yeah, well, safe travels. Definitely, listeners, if we have a lot of pro wrestlers that listen to the show. Go check that out, especially some up and coming kids that are looking for that next step and that seasoning that they can't get on the scene now that you had the chance to get with guys like Tony Anthony and Skandar and those guys. So that's really cool that you're doing that. I like that. One more time, Captain's Corner, GrappleCon 4, back to Lutz, April 11th, Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway. Alex, I hope you make a ton of money down there and have a just awesome time while you're there, brother. Seriously, we thank you so much. This has been an incredible honor for you to come on the show for us.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. It's been an honor listening to guys that know about the business and respectful. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed my time with you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Take care.
Safe travels. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, that was the one and only Alex the Pug Pourteau. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling after these messages.
CHW is continuing the legacy of historic professional wrestling in Tennessee with monthly events at the Armory in Ashland City. CHW owner Mike Green has made it his mission to present the best pro wrestling shows in the Nashville area, and he has been delivering the goods. CHW Wrestling combines all the elements that Tennessee wrestling fans have come to expect. Action, suspense, athleticism, reality, stories, surprises, and excitement, all delivered by the finest professional wrestlers this state has to offer. Follow CHW Pro Wrestling on Facebook for the latest news, announcements, and show dates. And subscribe to Championship Productions on YouTube to see past events like the Ashland City Rumble and the Valentine's Massacre. Fun for the whole family with delicious and affordable concessions on site. Witness the action and excitement of CHW in Ashland City at the Armory. Family Wars, Love and Hate, Championship Gold. A CHW event is everything you're looking for in a night of live entertainment.
All right, we are back, and man, oh man, that was an incredible show. Alex did not let us down. Honestly, really could have kept going and going with that conversation. Alex has a great history in the business, and there were other stories to talk about, but maybe we'll get him back on in the future. Once more, Alex was here to promote GrappleCon 4 Back to Lutz on April 11th. Again, Residence Inn, Tampa Suncoast Parkway, 2101 North Point Parkway, Lutz, Florida. You've heard us talk about it on this show and many others. Guys, be there or be square, and tell Nick and the gang, give me back my pro wrestling sent ya. As we continue on, we've been bringing it up these last few episodes, but it's just very important. If you guys don't mind, keep our buddy and good friend and former guest of the show, Ben Jordan, in your continued prayers. He is battling some back problems right now, and he's also got his continued fight with cancer. Just keep Ben in your prayers. We love him so much, and really, it means the world to us. So once again, keep him in your prayers, and thank you all for those that have already prayed for Ben. It means the world to us. Next episode, not going to spoil it here, but if you want to, you can find out all the news that is in the news on @GMBMPW on either Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or X. Guys, thank you all for liking, sharing, subscribing, supporting, all that. But most importantly, like I always say, we greatly appreciate you all for listening. If you don't mind, if you listen to us on Apple, if you listen to us on Spotify, they give you the option to rate and review us. If you don't mind, hit us with that 5 stars, and on Apple, you can even leave a little review. It would mean the world to us, and I know I've said it a million times, but honestly, we need it more than ever. So if you don't mind, just hit us with one of those reviews. But either way, keep listening, keep supporting. Like I said, means the world to Quinton, Jared, and I. So other than that, guys, that's all I got for today. Thank you all for listening. For our guest today, Alex the Pug Pourteau, for the Plastic Sheik, Jared Street, and myself, this has been Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, and we'll see y'all next time.
Don't forget.
Oh boy, here they come. The Dirty White Boys and their manager, Ronnie P. Gossett IV.
You know, Dave Brown, I didn't come back over here to win friends and influence people. I could care less what you or these morons think. I came over here because I have brought the greatest tag team in professional wrestling, the Dirty White Boys. I want you to get a good look at this team, because coming from me, that's a real compliment. We're here to win those USWA tag team titles. That's exactly what we're going to do. You bring on the Southern Rockers, because to me, they're nothing but female impersonators. You can tell these idiots to quit calling me Porky. We're going to take those titles and we're going to put them out of business. You think the Titanic went down? You think Social Security retired a lot of people? You wait till you get a hold of my Dirty White Boys. Tell them, Tony.
That's it. You know, Dave Brown, everybody's probably wondering where I got this man. Well, I went to the swamps of Louisiana, and when I found him, he had an alligator under one arm and a rattlesnake under the other one. And I said, hey, man, you look mean and nasty. And he tried to hit me. He said, I'm mean and nasty. I said, well, how would you like to be a dirty white boy? And he told me, what'd you tell me first? Told me it'd be great. So I took him up here and butt snort and stuck him in the camp. And he got real mean and raunchy. And now, when he was ready, when he was absolute ready, I brought him back.
And you see right here the new member of the Dirty White Boy, baby. The Raging Cajun, baby. And Southern Rockers, baby. You get ready, baby, because you're looking at the new USWA World Tag Team Champions. And you can take that to the bank, moron. Rock and roll, baby. Well, you've got to go against the Southern Rockers before you're the World Tag Champion. Ronnie P. Gossett has put together quite a tag team here. Let me tell you, he's got the manager's license current and managing the Dirty White Boys. And he has said they're looking for the World Tag Title. Look at this. Oh, my goodness. That may be it. 1, 2, and the count of 3 falls. As the Dirty White Boys, Tony Anthony and Alex Pourteau, get themselves a victory here over T.D. Steele and Ben Jordan. So our first look at this team certainly is impressive as they get the victory. Hey, Brown, you hadn't seen nothing yet, pal.
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you next week. And until then, so long for now.
This has been a James Rock Street production.